Hi, I'm John with Bluebridge Development, and this screencast is part of our guide, Joomla Developer, Finding and Hiring Yours. In this section, Gauging Without Engaging, I cover how to review potential Joomla developer candidate websites in order to build a list of good candidates for your project. The screencast is divided into two sections. In the first section, Inspect for Professionalism, I cover some checks you can perform to basically gauge how professional a Joomla developer is. Professionalism is really important because most of the problems with a project stem from unprofessional conduct. So for any developer you're looking at hiring, this should be a baseline. In the second section, Review Skill Set, we'll take a look at each of the potential skill sets in the Joomla developer community and some tricks to get a broad gauge of where those developers are at and whether there might be any problems working with them. In the interest of not being biased, and because I don't want this to be a commercial for Bluebridge Development, instead of looking at Joomla developer, we're going to look at a WordPress developer. And the reason why is that the Joomla and WordPress market are very similar in how they work. So I've loaded up this site for a WordPress developer, Nailish Shiragave. I'm probably butchering that, so I apologize, Nailish, if you see this. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this site and just look for some basic professionalism checks. So the first thing we're looking at is that it's easy to navigate and clear, and Nailish does a very good job of that. It's very clear. Home services, get a quote portfolio, clean, not cluttered. So he fits the bill for nice and easy to navigate. He's also error-free. I've looked around on a site, I haven't seen any errors, and that would be another red flag where we would want to avoid working with somebody who allowed errors to get out on their production site. Additionally, we don't want to see any ads, and unfortunately, in his blog, he chose to put in ads like this. I think this is not very professional. Blogs communicate on a personal level between a developer and their clients, and putting ads in there just turns it into something it's not supposed to be. I mean, if you're a professional blogger and you blog all the time, great. You want to put ads on there, go for it. But if you're a service provider, I think ads are really unprofessional way to portray your business. And you also want them to have an about page. And basically, their about page should actually tell you something. It shouldn't say something like, we're a team of developers, we work really hard, so on and so on and so on. It should tell you who they are and what their background is, what they can do. And Nailish is really good at that. He tells you his experience and where he lives. He doesn't hide things. He doesn't, hide his location or try to hide how big his company is or any of that. He's very clear, very honest. That's great. Additionally, there's some checks we can do off the site. And one of them is called Who Is, and it's a domain name check. This is the domain name, snailish.com. We can run a Who Is search on it, and it'll give us a rough idea of how long he's been in business. So this is through Network Solutions. You can just search in Google for Who Is and find a site that will allow you to do a Who Is check. And if we look down here, we can see right here that this domain name, snailish.com, was created on 1st of April of 2009. So he's been in business that long, and that's a great indicator. He's not new, here today, gone tomorrow type of thing. He's actually been around for a little while. And if the domain name, it says it's created newer, it doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't been in business. It just means that the domain name's not that old. But it's an easy check to do. It's quick. And I would generally say that working with somebody who's been in business longer is safer. Additionally, you might want to check out their profile on LinkedIn. Another good indicator that they take their business seriously. And that's what the whole professionalism is about. It's about taking what they do seriously. So I did a search for his name or her name. I could be getting this all wrong. And he does have a LinkedIn account, and it does explain his skills and so on, which is another great indicator that they're taking business seriously. In the next section, we're going to look at the 4 Joomla developer skill sets and some tips we can use to get an idea of how capable someone is in their skill set. And this isn't a perfect indicator of their skills. It's more some ways you can look at their work they've done and who they are to get a better idea of whether they'll likely be able to complete your project. The four Joomla developer skill sets are site builder, template skinner, web designer, and extension developer. And if you are unfamiliar with these, you can learn more about them in the accompanying guide, Joomla Developer, Finding and Hiring Yours. So for everybody, we want to look for relevant work, similar projects that they've completed, and testimonials from the clients whose project they helped complete. This is important because the closer our project is to one that they've demonstrated that they can do and do well, the more likely it is going to turn out successful. Additionally, we want to see that these developers have a strong focus on Joomla. And the reason that's important is because there are a few companies out there that are a little more than marketing agencies, and they sell projects. And they don't just work with Joomla, they work with every CMS available, any type of problem, they claim they can solve it. And the reason this is risky is because oftentimes they're a little more than salesmen, and once they get a project on board, they'll just turn around and subcontract it. This isn't good because they're adding little value to the project. They don't really understand your requirements and how what you want might affect the project's success, what sort of obstacles you might face. All they're doing is selling. Additionally, because they subcontract the projects out, the consistency of projects is variable, which means that anything in their portfolio you can't really trust because they didn't actually complete it. You don't know who they used to complete it. So that's why we want to see a strong focus in Joomla, just like we saw Nilish had a strong focus in WordPress. For site builders, because of the type of skill set they have, mainly what you want to look for is that their customers are happy with them and that you like how well they were able to bring extensions and templates together to complete sites. So we don't have a lot of very specific checks for site builders. However, there are a few things that apply to all developers. And those are that we want to look for relevant work, similar projects, and testimonials from clients who have had those projects completed. Additionally, we can look in the Joomla forum. And some developers post in Joomla forum, some don't. If the Joomla developer posts to the forum, it's a great way to get an idea of their personality, and also it gives you some insight into how skilled they are, whether they're asking more questions or answering more questions. So here's the Joomla forum at forum.joomla.org, and I'm just going to do a search for my username, and you'd have to guess around a little bit, use their domain name, use their real name to see if they post into that. And the results will come up like this. Actually, results will come up and you can look at some of their posts. So you can see here, and I don't think I'm tooting my own horn, I only have 5 posts here, so I'm not the most impressive when it comes to posting the forums, but you get an idea of my personality and my broken icon the last time I posted. And like I said, you could use this to gauge any of the Joomla skill sets, their abilities, and who they are. For template skinners and web designers, one of the checks we can do is to see whether their markup's valid. Markup is the HTML code that renders a website. So it's the underlying code. It looks like this, and it tells your browser how to show a website. And the markup validation service allows you to check to see whether the code that the designer used for their own website or the template's going to use for their own website is valid. And what we don't want is a lot of errors. So we can see for Snylish, his website, he has 3 errors. That's really not that bad. Ideally, you want it to be valid. Sometimes errors like this, these 3 errors will creep in simply because of a plugin or extension that they're using on their website that adds invalid code for their document type. But if you don't have just a few, or if their code's not valid, there's 40 errors, something like that, it's probably best to avoid working with them, especially for a template skinner or a Joomla web designer. Also for a Joomla web designer, when looking at their site, you want to make sure that their template is something that they've designed themselves. That's a good indicator that they have confidence in their own abilities to design. And one way you can do that is by viewing the source of the website and seeing what template they're using. If it's one that they've custom designed, you're not going to be able to search for and find it. So here is a demo site for Joomla 2.5, and I'm going to hit Control U to view the source. And what we're going to do is look right here where it says templates. And this template is Bees5, which I know ships with all Joomla sites. However, if it said something like RT_sphere, that stands for a rocket themed sphere. Sometimes if you, for example, in Chrome, these resources are linked. You can click on them, and it'll tell you about the template. Who was the author, how it's available, and so on. Alternatively, you can simply highlight the template name here. And like I said, it's right after, let me just grab it here. It's right after templates. You can copy and paste and do a search in Google, and you can get an idea. So Shape5 is a template company. They have a version, or they have information about the Piece 5 template. So if you're using a Joomla web designer, you don't want them to be using somebody else's template. If they authored it, that's fine, but using a Rocket Theme template or Shape5 template or one of those other companies shows that they don't have confidence in their own abilities to create and skin a template. So not the best thing. For extension developers, you're primarily going to have to rely on their portfolio on their site and the Joomla extension directory. However, an additional resource you might check out is GitHub. And GitHub is an open source code repository for open source projects. And a lot of developers use it, which is why it's a good resource. It might show you additional things that they've completed, or you might be able to learn just a little bit more about them. So for Nihilish, I'm just going to enter their name. If you know the developer's email, you might enter it here. That's a good way to look them up on GitHub. We can see there's some Nihilishes here. I don't think they're the Nihilish that we looked at originally. I've looked over this. I don't think any of them are, but this is the type of internet stalking you do, just trying to find out more information about them. As I mentioned previously, though, most likely the best resource is going to be the extensions directory. If you're looking for an extension developer or somebody who's more technically minded, they likely have some extensions on the extension directory. And the way to find them is to, same thing as with GitHub, you just sort of want to search around and try to hit off something that they've built. So I've already done a search for myself, Bluebridge Dev, and I came up with one of the extensions I developed, this one, because my domain name's in it. And all you want to do is when you find an extension you think they developed, next to a developer, it'll have a page with their name. And it'll show you on that page all the extensions they've submitted under that. And the reason this is valuable is because it provides more information about them, and it provides what sort of feedback the community had for those extensions. Ideally, you want more stars, more votes, more downloads. And it also will show you how they've responded to comments. If there's any negative comments, you get to see how they responded to them, whether they were professional, whether they listened, and so on. And this is going to be your primary resource besides the developer's own portfolio to determine their competence as an extension developer. That concludes the gauging without engaging section of the guide. I hope you learned something. I hope you found the information here valuable. To see the whole guide and to learn a little bit more and to increase your chances of completing a project successfully, go to bluebridgedev.com/Joomla-developer. Thanks for listening.